Hey everyone, this is Melissa, and I'm the talkative introvert. In today's episode, I am joined by no one. It's just me, guys. I haven't done a solo episode in a while, and I thought maybe I would sneak one in here because I do sometimes miss talking to an invisible audience, and I haven't really done that in a while. So in this episode, I'm just going to give an update on the podcast. And for OG listeners, you may remember I used to do that when I first started. So when I first launched the pod, I would do little podcast updates at the beginning of the episode, like when I got a new mic, when I launched the website, when I got those little Buzzsprout milestones, and I used to also read podcast reviews. However, I haven't really gotten any new ones lately. So you guys, if you like the podcast, please rate and review it. If you go to my link tree in the show notes, there's a link that shows you how to do a podcast review on iTunes. Also, if you're lazy like me, you can also just give the podcast a star rating on Spotify. It's a new feature that they have now, and it's super easy to do. All you do is go to my podcast, and there's a little star rating that you can click underneath my cover art, and you can give it either 1 to 5 stars. So hopefully you're giving me 5 stars though. But please go check that out. Go, rate, review. It really does help the podcast grow and, spread to other people. Okay, now for the updates. So as you may have noticed, I have been having a lot of guests on my show that aren't family members or friends. So if you're, a long-time listener, I do tend to have my friends and family come on and have, our chats and conversations. But now it's really like all these other people, all these different people. And this all really started because I got a message on Podmatch. So if you don't know what Podmatch is, I kind of think of it as a Tinder for podcasters, because the goal of Podmatch is to match podcast hosts with guest speakers and vice versa. So you don't have to be a podcaster to join. If you want to be a guest on a podcast, like if you just like talking, but you don't want to do the whole podcast thing, you can actually create a guest profile. So I have both. So I've been on a guest on other people's podcasts as well. And I'm trying to figure out how to add that to my website. I'm not super tech savvy when it comes to updating my website. If I get them up there, I will post something on social media. So make sure to follow me if you're interested. And I'll let you guys know when I'm a guest on somebody else's podcast. Anyways, so I joined Podmatch a year ago, but nothing actually happened from it. And so I kind of forgot I had a Podmatch account until one day someone messaged me on there, and I got an email notification, and I was like, what the heck is Podmatch? And I completely forgot that I had this account. But after that one message, I just kept getting message after message. And so I don't know like what happened, like how I ended up getting so many, like all of a sudden. I don't know if like maybe Podmatch just like grew all of a sudden and a bunch of people are using it now. So I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, it started with that one message, and now I'm pretty much booked for the rest of the season. I might actually have to save some of those episodes for the next season because I've gotten so many guests, and it's not like an exuberant amount, but I am just a team of one, and this isn't my full-time job. So having to, do my full-time job, also do like these guest podcasts or these guest recordings, and then like editing it. So I am pretty much booked for the rest of the season because I do want to reserve some of it for my family and friends to come back on and talk, because I do like those episodes too. They're some of my favorites. So outside of Podmatch though, we had our first listener guest. So Bailey, if you listen to, a lot of the episodes from the beginning of the season, I had Bailey come on and we did a lot of episodes, and it attracted our guest listener to reach out and ask to be a guest on the show. And I felt so honored that she reached out and asked to be a guest on the show. I honestly was surprised because with Podmatch guests, people are actively trying to get on people's podcasts, and the more the better for them. But with Simi, she specifically wanted to be on this podcast. It wasn't just someone trying to get on as many podcasts as they can. And also, it just really makes it more real that people are listening to me talking to my friends and family and these different guests. And it's honestly, it's just crazy. Also, when Simi was asked how she found the podcast, apparently the show is on someone's top introvert podcast list. I need to Google it, but apparently I made it onto someone's top 10, I think, or top 20, something like that about introverts. And that was completely bonkers to me, because I'm like, who likes listening to me talk? I mean, I know I started this whole podcast and everything, but I guess I never really expected to have anyone actually reach out and to have anyone actually talk to me or actually enjoy listening to the podcast. And I have noticed that my downloads are a little bit higher than they were before. So, I mean, that's cool. That's awesome. Like, I'm so honored to be on that person's, top 10 or whatever it was. And it really shows that people actually like it. So thank you. Thank you for listening and coming back for more. And in addition to Simi, I also have another potential listener guest as well. He reached out to me on Instagram, just, telling me about the podcast and that he liked the podcast and everything. And so that prompted me to ask him, like, well, hey, have you ever been on one? Like, do you want to be on mine? Like, I'd be happy to have you as a guest, because he's also a fellow introvert, and it's just cool to have like other introverts on the show. So we do have a meet and greet scheduled, and I really hope he decides to be on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. Fingers crossed that he still wants to do it. With that said, if you guys want to go on the podcast, please reach out. You can DM me on Instagram. I try to, be on there. I'm not really good at posting things and being on Instagram, and I try to share stuff to my story, but I'm just not really good at social media. But I do, have my notifications on for messages, at least for the Talkative Introvert podcast. So feel free to reach out to me. It doesn't have to be just, wanting to be on the podcast. Just if you want to provide feedback or comments, or if you have any suggestions on, episode topics or anything like that, or just to talk about the podcast or introvert related things, or things we've talked about, feel free to DM me on Instagram. You can also send me an email at thetalkativeintrovertpodcast@gmail.com. I know that's like a mouthful, but I was trying to get just Talkative Introvert Podcast. Or no, I was trying to get just the Talkative Introvert, but that's already taken. So I had to add the podcast part. But I realized I probably should just put pod, but whatever. Anyways, so either DM me on Instagram. You can also message me on Facebook. I don't really use Facebook. Whatever I post on Instagram is what ends up on Facebook. But since they're basically the same, like they're owned by the same company, they go hand in hand. Like if I get a message on Instagram, it shows up on my Facebook and vice versa. So either way, whichever platform you want to use, feel free to reach out. I would be so honored to have, actual listeners come onto the show, because you actually want to be on the show. Not saying people from Podmatch don't want to actually be on the show. I've had people reach out and say that they started listening to the podcast because they were intrigued by the name, Talkative Introvert. And so I thought that was pretty cool. But there are a lot of people who are just trying to get on as many as they can so they can spread the word or spread the story that they're trying to share, which is cool too. And talking about having guests on the show, I really hope you guys like the content and that you like the conversation. It's been a really interesting experience, and it's definitely something I'll probably continue doing. I think I may have overdid it because I'm just like so excited to have other people on, because I've so far in this, I don't know what you want to call it, this journey or this like experience, I have learned a lot of new things and I met a lot of interesting people, and there's just a lot of people out there with a story to share. And I think it's really fascinating because we all come from different backgrounds. We all live life differently, and everyone has their own ways of going about life, going about how they cope and how they, deal with certain situations. And so it's nice to have these different perspectives and different viewpoints on how people live their lives, because it can be helpful to learn that and maybe incorporate it to your own life. And so that's kind of been like the great thing about Podmatch, because a lot of people who end up on Podmatch and who reach out, they are people who want to spread the word of something that worked for them in hopes that it will work for somebody else. And so that's what I really love about the people who end up being on that website and looking for podcasts to be on. And some people just have interesting stories, or some people just want to talk, which is cool too. Like I love to talk, hence the name. So it's been really cool to be able to do that. And it's really been great for the podcast as far as content, because I'm able to get more episodes out. So if you haven't noticed lately, like I've so far been able to get an episode out almost every week, which is something I was trying to do at the beginning, but it's really hard, especially like doing these solo episodes and trying to, figure out episode topics and also recording them and also doing like my own research, but having different guests on, they've already done that part and it's just me talking to them. And so that's like the really great part of the whole doing Podmatch, and hopefully the content is good. Like I hope you guys enjoy these conversations with these people. Although, there's always like a good and bad with everything that we do, right? I do miss talking to friends and family. And so I am trying to schedule that, because I kind of want to do like a Halloween themed month for October with all the episodes. So hopefully I can get my friends and family like scheduled for that, because that's something, I love doing that. Like every year, there's only 2 seasons previous to this one, but so far we've done, like, my friends and I have done a Halloween episode, these last 2 seasons. So I kind of want to carry on that tradition. So we'll see. I'm trying to figure that out and get episodes recorded for that. And another thing about having guests on, and this is kind of good and bad depending on, I guess, my mood for that day, but depending on the guest, I don't always get to do much talking, which kind of is the whole reason why I started the podcast to begin with, because I wanted a platform for my voice. And so even though I love having guests on and I'm honored to be a platform for other people, like I think I changed my description lately. I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous episode, but there's a podcast out there. They're not running anymore. I think they only did like 2 episodes and quit, but they basically copied my bio. So I think they were called Talkative Introvert. So I'm the Talkative Introvert. So they just took out the out of it, and they essentially copied my bio, and I didn't like that. I was like, that makes me feel icky that someone did. I don't know why. I should be flattered, right? Because someone copied me, but at the same time, like, gross, like, do your own thing, So I did change my bio recently, and I did mention, like, I am opening up my platform for others to share their story, and I'm honored to do that. I'm glad to do that and happy to do that. But I also, still want this platform to be for my voice too, because that's like the whole reason why I started this whole thing. So it is a bummer sometimes. Like, I am usually the listener in real life. And so I always like revert back to the listener role. And when we have these guests, or when I have these guests on, I do have to be in that listener role. as the host and allow them to, talk and share their story. But sometimes I want to talk. And sometimes, depending on the guest, there's great like back and forth, but sometimes it's mostly just them talking. So that, it depends on my mood also. Like I made the mistake, I'm not doing this anymore, but I made the mistake of opening up my calendar to doing interviews after work. And I'm like, it's too tiring. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. I did it a few times, and those times I think in those episodes, I just didn't really talk all that much at all, or like barely talked during those episodes. And I think that's mostly because I'm just like tired. So I'm just like trying very hard to listen to this person, because I also kind of have a short attention span. I think I mentioned this in one of like my episodes, and you may have seen it like on Instagram, but I legit think that I may have a tiny mild form of ADHD, because I do get distracted so easily and my short-term memory is the worst. And so when I'm extremely tired, especially like in my line of work where it's not physical, but it's very mentally draining. When I do a podcast episode after work, I am struggling and I'm trying really hard to pay attention to the person and remember what they're saying. And so I'm constantly like writing notes down. And so luckily when you use Zencaster, which is what I use, it gives you 2 audio files. And so I may be like feverishly writing notes and making sure I remember things. And so I'm able to mute that so you guys aren't hearing me trying to like remember what people are saying and like typing and writing and stuff. But yeah, why did I talk about this? Oh, it's because it is a bummer that I don't get to talk as much as I usually would if it was like friends and family or a solo one like this one. But it's all good. I think the content is still good, because these people do have, interesting stories and good stories to tell. And like I said, I'll probably continue doing this as long as there's people to match with on Podmatch, because it is nice to have these conversations. But I definitely learned a lot. Like I think I did too much. And because like I said earlier, I am pretty much booked for the whole season, and I'm trying to reserve spots for family and friends. So even though I recorded them this year, some of them might not even go out till next year. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I do want to reserve spots for hopefully another solo episode, and also more, bring back some of my friends and family that have been on the podcast before, because it'd be nice to have those conversations again, because those are my favorite. And I love those because they're actual conversations. Sometimes being a host is, it really is the listener role and asking questions, and I enjoy the back and forth. But yeah, like I said earlier, I think I did too much. I got a little too excited, because it is a lot of prep work. I meet with them twice. I do like a meet and greet first, then I record the episode, and I got to prep my notes. And then I signed up for Calendly, which is where people can, schedule interviews with me. And if you haven't heard of my Calendly, it's a platform where you can add your availability, so people can just go in, see your calendar, and book your time. And so I overdid it with like adding or opening up my calendar for after work and then on Fridays. And I did not do weekends. I was like, no, weekends are not like, this is becoming like work now. And so I definitely am going to take a break from doing, guest appearances, or not guest appearances, guest podcast episodes, and try to slow down. I got way too excited, but yeah. So, but I think I've got it down now. Like I've got my templates made in Gmail. I've got, my Zencaster set up. I got my podcast release form all set up. My calendar's all set up. I got, Word templates for how to structure the what's it called? The interview, stuff like that. So I think I'm a little better now, and it's not as overwhelming and doesn't feel as much like work. Because I don't really want the podcast to feel like work, because it is a hobby. But it got to the point where I'm like stressing out about, making sure I get things out on time and pleasing people. And like, I keep telling people like, yeah, I don't know when I'm going to release this episode. It's going to take me a while. Like I've got like right now I've got like, I think 3 or 4 episodes I still need to edit and release. But I really wanted to do this solo one because I haven't done one in a while. But they're all very like understanding, and they're like, yeah, whenever you get it out, I think people understand. I think a lot of podcasters too are like me. Like they don't have a whole crew or a whole team, it's not like the Joe Rogan Experience or like those really big podcasts, I don't think it's very common for podcasters to get like as famous or as big, not like TikTokers or YouTubers or anything like that, which actually is fine with me. Like I don't want to be super famous. And I don't think podcasters, unless you're Joe Rogan, like I don't know any podcasters that are like extremely famous, So that's a good enough fame for me. It's just having a person here and there DM me or comment on my posts on Instagram. That's good enough. On the flip side, it's been really nice to be on other people's podcasts. Like I've only been on 2 so far, and I got one. So as of the recording of this one, I'm scheduled to be on another person's podcast today after I do this one. So hopefully I'm not talking too much, but whatever, it's fine. But it's been really nice to do that and have people reach out for me to be on their podcast. And more recently, so I lied earlier. So I've been on 1, 2, 3. So this will be my 4th one today later. But I got asked to be part of somebody's podcast, which I thought was really cool. I don't want to jinx it because it's not officially out yet. So he hasn't actually launched the podcast yet. And it was really cool, and I felt very honored because he asked me to be on his very first episode of the podcast. So there's this guy that's starting his own clothing line that caters to introverts, and along with the launch of his clothing line, he's going to launch the podcast, and that's the episode that I'm going to be on. And which I was surprised. I thought he was already recording it. I didn't realize like I was going to be like the very first guest on his show. So hopefully I did all right. Also, it's a visual recording too. So it's not just audio. So right now I only do audio. Like if you check out my YouTube channel, it's just essentially the audio version put into a video format, but there's nothing in it. It's just like, I think it's just like my album art or my cover art. So yeah, so that I was a little hesitant about that, but I did it anyways. I was terrified, but it's okay. I made it. I'm still here. And he already sent me the final version, but honestly, I didn't even bother watching it because body dysmorphia is a real bitch sometimes. Like I can't watch it. Anyway, so as part of the recording, the whole reason, like, I'm sure he just wants to do the visual and audio, but as a part of it, he also wanted me to wear one of the shirts that he designed. So he sent that to me and I got to wear it on the episode. So if this dude ever makes it really big, I can say that I got to own and wear one of his very first products before it launched, which I thought was pretty cool. So fingers crossed, guys, that the launch and the podcast goes well. I wish him well. I hope, he is successful in his business and in the podcast. And, whenever that launches and whenever that is ready for the public eye, I will definitely share it on Instagram. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, for as of right now, like I don't want to name names in case it doesn't go through, but it looks pretty promising to me. He seems pretty legit. And yeah, I'm excited for that one to go out. I'm not excited for the visual part, but whatever. I'll just deal with it. Like can't hide forever, But yeah, it's been fun being on people's podcasts, like have to prep for anything. I don't have to worry about editing. I don't have to worry about the release date. I don't have to worry about like creating a social media post or anything like that. So it's been really great to do that, and I want to do more of that. So even if I'm taking a break from having guests on my podcast, I will gladly be on anybody else's podcast. So if you're a podcaster out there, you need someone to talk to and need someone to chit chat with, hit me up, like reach out to me, DM me, email me, whatever. I will gladly be on, and I can pretty much talk about anything, mostly introversion, but whatever, anything. I have an opinion about everything, almost everything. I shouldn't say everything. Anyways, as far as updates, I know this is kind of a short episode, but that's really been the biggest change so far with the podcast. It's just having these guests on, and they're different guests. They're not your usual. It's not one of my friends or, in-laws or family or cousins or whatever, but I hope the content is good and I hope you guys are enjoying it. It's really been helping me get more content out there and in a more regular cadence, and I hope it's still quality over quantity. So even though I have more episodes, I hope the quality is still there. Just let me know. Let me know. Do you enjoy the conversations? Do you enjoy me having these other people? Do you think I make a great host, or would you rather me have more conversations like back and forth with friends and family, or, maybe find people who are more a conversationalist, if you will? Just let me know. Because I know like some of them, like I said earlier, they were probably something I did after work, or they're just with people who, talk more, listen less. I don't know. But there are episodes where I don't talk as much. And so I understand if maybe you don't like those, but maybe you do. I don't know. So let me know. Along with that, I mentioned this earlier, I think, but honestly, sometimes it's just hard to come up with topics, and it's hard to find things that are worth talking about that's not super boring. Like the introvert stuff, I love learning about introverts, but I know that maybe my first few episodes, they were a lot of just like reading out loud, reading an article out loud, or reading something from a screen, and it's not really as personal, if you will. So I don't know how much those people like if you like those better, but those kind of make me feel like a robot. Like I'm just spitting facts at you guys or something. Or I don't know if they're facts, but things that I read on, the internet. Let me know, if you have any topics, or if you want to be a guest on the show, or if you know someone that would make a great guest, maybe I can reach out to them and ask them to be on, Lastly, if you guys are interested in signing up with Podmatch, I'll add my affiliate link in the description. So far, it's been great. It's really easy to use, and depending on what plan you have as a podcaster, you can actually get paid. I haven't gotten paid, but I'm sure people out there are getting paid. So go check it out. If you're a podcaster, go check it out. If you want to get more guests on, or if you're just someone who likes to talk or have a story to share, go on there and create your guest profile and spread the word, spread whatever, message you're trying to share to everyone. Hopefully it's a good message. But yeah, thanks guys. I miss doing this. I miss doing those solo episodes. I will try to do more. I will always end a season with a solo episode. So even if I don't get another one out, I will have at least my goodbye 2022 episode that I usually do at the end of the season. So until then, hope you guys enjoy these guest episodes. Thanks for making it to the end. If you enjoy what you hear and want to stay up to date on the show, please follow me on Facebook and or on Instagram. You can also check out my website at thetalkativeintrovertpodcast.com. All the information will be on there as well as in the show notes. If you want to help support the show, please review and rate the podcast and share it with your friends and family. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys in the next episode.